This conference will now be recorded.
Chaturmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Parambaram. Ragadirogan Sadadanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasrudan Asheshan Aulsukyamoha Aradidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. Very good evening and namaskaram to all of you. We were discussing about the Prakrita Karma of Malas, and that we completed, I think. Avashtambha Purishasya Mutrasya Kleda Vahanam Svedasya Kleda Vidhrudi. And we discussed many things about the Kledam, concept of Kledam in detail. Now we will move to the next area of discussion. So, Doshadhadu Malamulam Sada Dehasya. Then, while explaining those three elements, obviously the first thing that the narrator is supposed to give is the Prakrita Karma of these three factors, which is done. Now, our purpose is to understand the all possible lakshanas in detail. And the lakshanas are of two types, Prakrita and Vikrita. Lakshanas are of two types, Prakrita karmas and Vikrita karmas, or Prakrita lakshanas and Vikrita lakshanas. And the Prakrita lakshanas are over. Regarding the samprapti of any vyadhi, there is one observation. Doshaha dushtaha rasaihi dhadun dushayanti ubhaye malan mala malayanani. That is one standard mode of operation behind all vyadhis, all vikaras. And how do we understand that one dosha is now in Prakritavastha or Vikritavastha? Same is the case with dhadus, malas. That is where we have to look for lakshanas. Lakshanas. Lakshyate anena. Something which shows, indicates, reveals a particular thing. That is what we call as lakshana. So there are prakrita lakshanas and vikrita lakshanas. And the lakshanas are nothing but the manifestations of karma. So prakrita lakshana means the way in which the prakrita karmas manifest. And vikrita lakshanas means the way in which vikrita karmas are manifested, isn't it? So now we have completed Anugrinhadi Avikritaha. Avikritaha means Prakritaha. That is how we have started everything. Ulsaho Uchvasa Nishwasa Cheshta Vega Pravartanaihi Samyaggatya cha Dhadunam Akshanam Padavena cha Anugrinhadi Avikritaha. From that Avikrita onwards, everything what we saw until the last Karika Svedasya Kleda Vidhrudi, up to that it was Avikritaha. Now we have to think about what will be the changes happening when this Avikrita Avastha is gone and Vikrita Avastha comes. Vikrita Avastha can be of two types, Vruddhavastha and Kshinavastha. Avikrita Avastha is Samavastha. So, while searching for Vikrita Lakshanas, we will have to look for two sets of Lakshanas, that is Vruddha Lakshanas and Kshina Lakshanas, of which first we will see or look into the Vruddha Lakshanas. So the text moves forward. Vruddhastu kurute nilaha karshya karshnyoshnakamitva or kamatva kambanaha shagrudgrahan bala nidrendriya bhramsha pralaba bhrama deenataha. Vruddhastu kurute nilaha Karshya Karshni Ushnakamitva Kambanaha Shagridgrahan Bala Nidrendriya Bhramsha Pralaba Bhrama Deenataha. While we saw the Prakrita Lakshanas or Avikrita Lakshanas in terms of karma, we were seeing many things: Ulsaha, Uchvasa, Nishwasa, etc., etc., Prenanam, Jivanam, Leba, etc., etc., and Avashtambha, Purishasya, Mutrasya, Kleda Vahanam. That was described as short as possible. The description is not very elaborate. But while going through the Vikrita Lakshanas, we may still find a bit detailed list of Lakshanas. That is actually interesting, because a Prakrita dosha is something like a stable condition. A stable condition. Where the possibility to swing to the left or right or up or down is minimal. That is how it is maintaining its stability. Either balanced or cancelled. Either balanced with the stressors or cancelled in itself from the influence of stressors. The doshas, dhadus and malas, all elements, they try to maintain that stability. So it is something like a river flowing in its normal plain land. There is a system, there is a pattern which is never violated. But suppose all of a sudden a flood comes and the appearance of the river is going to change immediately. It becomes quite scary to which all areas this river is going to spread, or which all areas are going to be uh, literally swallowed by the river is unknown. There are many possibilities influenced by multiple factors. That way, while we are explaining the possibility of getting out of track, obviously the list may be a bit long or big. So that we can find here. In the same way, when it is China, then also it is becoming more and more shrunken, confined. So there also I think there is some sort of an unpredictability. Even though it is getting more and more confined to its own territory, the way in which it is going to withdraw need not follow a pattern all the time. So there also I think you may require to explain or describe multiple possibilities, and the list obviously may go a bit long. So that we can expect here. So vruddhaha tu kurute anilaha. Vruddhaha anilaha. Vruddhaha anilaha. Anilaha vayu. Vruddhaha. Vruddhim praptaha. Vruddhaha anilaha kurute. Vruddhaha anilaha kurute. Certain things. It is going to do certain things. And the list is given. Karshya, Karshnya, Ushnakamatva, Kamba, Anaha, Sagridgrahan. Karshya, Karshyam. Word is clear. Karshnyam, Krishna Varnatva. Ushnakamatvam, desire for Ushna, Ushna Abhilasha. Ushnakamatva or Ushnakamitva. Kambam, tremor. Anaham. Anaham is a distension of the udaram. Anaham is a technical term as well. When this sort of a distension is preceded by some sort of a stage where the vayu which is trapped inside fails to move up or down and gets stuck inside and cause severe pain. That is how a technical explanation of anaham goes. But here you take it as just as a distension, not as a disease but as a lakshana. Anaha sagridgrahan. Sagridgraha. It is clear. Then bala nidra indriya bhramsha. Bala bhramsha, indriya bhramsha, nidra bhramsham. Bala bhramsham, Nidra Bhramsham and Indriya Bhramsham. Bala, Nidra, Indriya Bhramsha, Pralapa, Bhrama, Deenada. So here, Bhramsham means loss. So there is Balabhramsham, loss of strength. Nidra Bhramsham, loss of sleep. Indriya Bhramsham. Indriya Bhramsham need not be a loss but a compromise. A compromise in the receptive capacity of the Indriyas. Indriya Bhramsham. Then Pralabam. Pralabam is something like uh, talking some absurd words or sentences which is not contextual and which is not sensible as well. That is pralapam. Bhramam. Bhramam chakrarudhasya iva. The feeling as if you are on a spinning wheel. Chakrarudhaha iva. Deenata shows the sort of weakness and lack of enthusiasm. When there is balabhramsham, obviously that shows here an extension of that balabhramsham manifests as deenada. So we find a list of lakshanas. There is karsyam, but interestingly, the list of lakshanas what we find, they include both long term and short term lakshanas. When you find karsyam, that need not be a reflection of an immediate vatakopa but a long standing vatakopa. But kambam can happen even very fast. Ushnakamitvam can happen very fast. So this list contains both long term and short term manifestations of vayu vruddhi or anila vruddhi. And whenever we go through this shloka or whenever we teach this shloka, it is a common question which is always anticipated. Why this lakshanas? Why these lakshanas? Or why no other lakshanas? But I think that question is many a times not valid. That question is not valid many a times because this is based on observations. In a sharira where there is vada vriddhi, what that vruddhavada is doing, vruddhavada karma. Vruddhavada karma. So you cannot expect all these lakshanas in a vruddhavada sharira. Not all the lakshanas. Similarly, just one of these lakshanas need not always indicate an established vruddhavada. So both we should keep in our mind. So something like you can maybe on a based on a detailed observation, you may be able to make some sort of a list. Okay, out of this these lakshanas, if there are 5 or 8 or whatever it is, we may conclude that there is Vada Lakshana. Okay, fine, doesn't matter. These are all for objective purposes, or purposes of objective explanation of the stuff, which is of course can be done or may not be done, doesn't matter. But you should understand that as clinicians, you should have a thorough idea about what karmas a Vriddhavada is going to do, and what all lakshanas are going to manifest as part of this. So we find Karshya Karshnya Ushna Kamitva Kambanaha Shagridgrahan Bala Nidra Indriya Bhramsha Pralaba Bhrama Deenata. Then when Pitta is Vriddha, what is going to happen? Pida Vinmutra Netra Twak Kshutridaha Alpa Nidrataha. Pittam Kurude Vriddha. Pida-vinmutra netratva kshutridaha alpanidrataha. Pida is a varna. Pida varnata. Yellow. So there will be obvious yellow discoloration where vinmutra netratvak. In all these situations, vit means shakrit, mutra, netra, and twak. In all these deshas, Pita Varnada will be present. Pita Vinmutra Netrattvak. Then Chut. Chut is a normal Lakshana, but here Vriddha Pittam causes excessive Chut. Trit. Excessive Trit. Daham. Daham is not a normal Lakshana. Daham is some burning sensation. Daha. Alpa nidrata. Nidra alpatvam. We saw nidra alpatvam or nidra nasham in Vada Vriddhi. We see nidra alpatvam in Pitta Vriddhi as well. That we should keep in our mind. Whenever there is nidra nasham, you should look into two possibilities. Vriddhavadam, Vriddha Pitta. Samsarga possibility is also there, and that need not be conclusive. There may be other aspects as well in Nidranasham, which needs more understanding of the situation. We are not discussing that aspect into the full spectrum of events at this point of time. But all the words are familiar, all the ideas are clear. Pida Vinmutra Netratvak Shutriddaha Alpa Nidrataha Pittam. Then Vriddha Shleshma. How does Vriddha Shleshma manifest when in terms of Lakshanas? We find Shleshma Grisadana Prasega Alasya Gauravam Shwaitya Shaitya Shladhangatvam Swasakasa Adinidrata. Shleshma Sadana Prasega Alasya Gauravam Shwaitya Shaitya Shladhangatvam Swasakasa Adinidrata. Shleshma Vriddha. Vriddha Shleshma Kurute or Karoti. What all Lakshanas? Agni Sadanam. Agni Sadanam. Agni Mandyam. Prasegam. Prasegam is sort of excessive accumulation of the lala in the mouth, saliva. Alasyam. Alasyam is something like sort of lack of interest. alasata, lack of the sort of drive, lack of enthusiasm. It is not about the inability, but about the lack of interest. Alasya. Gauravam. Anga gauravam. Anga gauravam. Guruta. Shwaityam. Shwaitya varnada. Shukla varnada. Shwaityam. Shvedasya bhava. Shaityam. Shitata. Cold to touch. Shladhangatvam. Note that. Shladhangatvam. Prakrita karma of Shleshma was sthirangatvam. When it is vruddha, interesting, not when it is kshina, but it is vruddha, it is causing shladhangada. Anga shaidhilyam. Anga means avayava. Then shwasa kasa adinidrada. Shwasam. Shwasa vaishamyam. Kasam. Kasanam. Kasam. Adinidrata, excessive nidrata. Shleshma, Agni Sadana, Prasega Alasya Gauravam, Shwaitya Shaitya, Shladhangatvam, Shwasakasa Adinidrata. Shwasakasa Adinidrata. All the lakshanas, all the words are familiar, all the lakshanas are familiar. Only thing is, here it is adinidrata. In both the previous situations we were seeing alpa nidrata. So maybe contemplating on these lakshanas for some time will give you a better understanding about what tridoshas are. Taking the prakrita lakshanas for granted first, then looking into prithastu kurute nilah karsyaha, adivrutthaha or vruttha vayu causing karsyam. How does karsyam happens? Not in technical terms, but in simple common sense. When you are losing mass, you are becoming krisha. So when vayu is vruttha, you are losing the mass. You are losing the content, the stuff of the body. The stuff of the body is sneha, sneha saro ayam purushaha. So when you say that, okay, you are losing the stuff, you mean you are losing the sneha, because vayu is vruddha and the result is karsya. It means that the power or the nature of vayu is against the stuff of the body, that is sneha. So vayu is ruksha. So that gives you, these lakshanas will give you a better understanding about the nature and type of operation of doshas. All the lakshanas, one after the other, if you look into it, karshnyam, krishna varnata. So that shows how vayu changes the, actually the krishna varnata does not mean a dark complexion. Dark complexion as such is not attributable as to vada vriddhi, because it is a function of pitta along with the other uh, cooperating doshas, and it also is indicative of different bhuta predominance as well. I'm not going to the finer details of that aspect. So here it shows an unusual or a change in the complexion against its natural tone, and that is karshyam. It can be, sorry, karshnyam, and that can be local, that can be generalized as well. Accordingly, you can decide whether it is a generalized vada vriddhi or a pradeshika vada vriddhi. All these things you can make out. Of course, the tool is abhyasal prapyade drishti karma siddhi prakashini. There is no ready-made answer for all these questions. Then take all the lakshanas. I'm not going to review the lakshanas once again. Just sitting on these lakshanas with a fine sense of perception will give you a better idea about how the body, the concept of body is conceived in Ayurveda, which is very important, which is very, very important. With that, we conclude the dosha vruddha lakshanas. And then we find the vruddha dhadu lakshanas. Then we find rasobi shleshmavad. Rasobi shleshmavad. Vruddhaha rasaha api. Vruddhaha rasaha api. Rasaha api vruddhaha shleshmavad. Shleshmavad. Like shleshma creates the lakshanas. Creates the lakshanas. That means a vruddha rasa generates certain lakshanas which are similar to the lakshanas made by the vruddha shleshma. Made by the vruddha shleshma. It is very interesting because here we will find the similarity between different factors, different principles in terms of their karma. When we say that rasobi shleshmavad means there is a similarity existing between the vruddha lakshanas of shleshma and the vruddha lakshanas of rasadhadu. Shleshma is a dosha, this is a dhatu. So if there is a similarity in the lakshanas, that means the way in which a vruddha shleshma and the vruddha rasa is doing their karmas, that is similar. So if that is similar, that means shleshma and rasa are having similar gunas within it. They are having similar guna. So rasobi shleshmavad. The same lakshanas you can find in rasa vruddhi as well. There is no contradiction in it. In a situation, in a clinical situation where you find the shleshma vruddha lakshanas like agni sadana, prasega, alasya, gauravam, then swaitya, shaitya, sladhangatvam, swasakasa, adi nidrada. It is indicative of shleshma in terms of doshas and it is indicative of rasa in terms of dhadus. Then moving on to rekta, rektam visarpapliha vidradhin kushta vadasra pittasra gulma upakusha kamalaha vyanga agninasha sammoha raktattvang netramutradaha. Raktam visarpa pliha vidradhin kushta pittasra gulmopakusha kamalaha vyanga agninasha sammoha raktattvang netramutradaha. Relatively a relatively long list. There is, interestingly, in the list, there are many Vyadhis by name. There are many Vyadhis as such. Visarpam, Pliha, Vidradhi, Kushtam, Vadashonidam, Raktapittam, Gulmam, Upakusham, Kamala. So there are many Vyadhis by name. That is very interesting because you see, we always uh, propose that dosha eva hi sarvesham roganam eka karanam. But in the list of that vada vruddhi or pitta vruddhi or kabha vruddhi, we saw many lakshanas. But the name of vyadhis given as such were very, very less. Only maybe that our Swasakasam. Other than that, we do not find many Vyadhis by name, Rogas by name. All are given just as Lakshanas. And Dhadus do not have the sort of Swadandra Dushagatva. And whenever we say that, okay, this that Vyadhi is of this particular Dhadu, it means it is because of the doshas which are residing in that particular Dhadu. Which just shows the sthana samsraya of the dosha. That is how we have understood it. But here, coming to the Rekta, the story of Rekta, we find many diseases named as such. Visarpa, Pliha, Vidradhin, Kushta, Vadasra, Pittasra, Gulma, Upakusha, Kamala, Vyenga, Agninasha, Sammoha, Rekta. Maybe the last line a bit exception. There we find many Lakshanas as well. But up to that, I think there are many Vyadhis as such. So, why does it happen? This could be because of the essentiality of the involvement of this particular dhadu in the manifestation of that particular vyadhi. The involvement of rakta is indispensable in the manifestation of these vyadhis. Definitely, these vyadhis are caused by certain dosha kopas. Rakta is not a dosha, it is a dhadu, so it cannot cause this vyadhi. Whenever we say that this is a raktaja vyadhi, it just means that it is a vyadhi caused by the dosha residing in rakta. But this long list given in connection with rakta indicates that this particular vyadhi cannot happen if there is no involvement of this particular dhatu. That is how we could understand. So that shows the importance of rakta as well, isn't it? A long list of diseases like visarpam, pliha, vidradhi, kushtam, vadaraktam, raktapittam, gulmam, upakusham, kamala, vyangam. So there are many vyadhis where the involvement of rakta is. This is actually an udaharana. There may be many like this. And all the names are familiar. So I'm not going to explain the terms one after the other. Now, coming to the mamsa. So we saw rasa, shleshmavad, rectum, a long list of diseases. Then mamsam, vruddham, vruddha. These are all about vruddha dhadus. Mamsam, Gandarbudha-grandhi Gandorudara-vruddhitaha Kandhadishwadhimamsam cha. Mamsam Gandarbudha-grandhi Gandorudara-vruddhitaha. Mamsam Gandam. Gandam again is a name of a disease. Gandam. Arbudam, name of a disease. Grandhi, again. Ganda, Arbuda, Grandhi. Then Vruddhitaha. Vruddhita, Vruddhi. Vruddhavastha. Vruddhavastha. Vruddhavastha means some sort of a bulkiness, increased bulkiness, like staulyam. Here the bulkiness, increased bulkiness is specific to certain areas which are listed as Gandam, Uru, Udaram. Gandam, Uru, Udara, Vruddhitaha. Then, other than that, Kandhadishu, Adhimamsam cha. Kandhadishu, Kandham, Adi, similar areas. Kandham is there, which is an Dehadesha. Then Talu may be there, Jihwa may be there, as shown in the commentaries. Kandhadishu Adhimamsam. Adhimamsam. Adhimamsam, excessive presence of Mamsa Dhatu. Adhimamsam. Actually, this Grandhi, Arbudam are all some sort of presentation of Adhimamsata. So here we find Kandhadishu Adhimamsam cha. So here also we should understand about the specific diseases listed like Gandam or Arbudam, Grandhi. Those Vyadhis cannot manifest without the involvement of Mamsam. And the others mainly are Lakshanas where Mamsa Vruddhi is inferred. Now coming to the Medas. Tadvanmeda tadha shramam alpebi cheshtite. Shwasam spikstanodara lambanam. Spikstanodara lambanam. Tadvanmeda tadha shramam alpebi cheshtite. Shwasam spikstanodara lambanam. Tadvanmedaha. Medas is also like this. So Medas also is a part of the Lakshanas which are listed as Mamsa Vruddhi Bhava. Mamsa Vruddhi Bhava Rogas. So Gandarbudha Grandhi, Gandorudara Vruddhida, Kandhadishwadhimamsam cha, they are also indicative of Medo Vruddhi, as in the case of Mamsa Vruddhi. Meda Vruddhi. That is why it is called Tadvan Medaha. Tadha Shramam Shwasam Alpe Cheshtite api. Alpe Cheshtite api Shramam Shwasam cha. Alpe api Cheshtite. Even with a very trivial physical activity. Cheshtitam, physical activity. Alpam, minimal. Even with minimal physical activity, there is shramam, tiredness, and the sort of shramashwasam as well. Panting, feeling shortness of breath. That is Swasa, Shrama, Swasa. Then Spik, Stana, Udara, Lambanam. Sagging of certain areas like Spik, the buttock area, Stanam, the breast area, and Udaram, the tummy. Sagging of Spik, Stana, Udaram. So that these are all indicative of Vruddhameda, additional to whatever we saw in Mamsa Vruddha Lakshanas. I think there are a couple of points raised in the chat box. Let me just go through it. Sometimes we may be able to discuss it here. Otherwise, we may miss it later. One is that okay, Nilesh? Can we find that questions or a point what is discussed?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Even though Rasa and Shleshma have the same gunas and Vruddhi Lakshanas, for the clinical purposes, how do we understand it differently? That is one question. Actually, it need not be understood separately, or it need not be understood differently, because they are two different principles. When these lakshanas are there, you obviously look for which is the dosha. In that question, you will never mistake it with the rasadhatu. Which dosha? There is only one answer. This is Shleshma. Then which rasa? That is about the involvement of dhadu. Then you look for rasa. Sorry, which dhadu? Then you find the answer as it is rasa. So in the clinical situation, you interpret it as this is a case of Shleshma Vruddhi manifesting in rasadhadu. There is nothing conflicting in it. I hope it is clear. Then next is after Vyadhi Moksha, patient come with Daurbalya and Adinidrata. How to interpret dosha as here Kabha mentioned these lakshanas, and after Vyadhi Moksha we consider Kabha Kshinavastha. So is it a conflicting idea or not? I hope I understood the question properly, isn't it, Dr. Ujjwala? I think so. uh, the question
Yes,
is
sir.
yes, fine. The question is we find Daurbalya and Adinidrada after a Vyadhi or during the Vyadhi Moksha Avastha, which is actually a Kabhakshina Avastha. But here we find this Daurbalya and Adinidrada in Kabha Vruddhi. So how can these conflicting ideas be assimilated? That is the question. See, when Kabha Vruddhi happens by specific nidanas of Kabha Vruddhikara nidanas, there will be excessive Guru Guna, then excessive Shida Guna, all the characteristics of this Shleshma manifest. That is what is explained as Shleshma Agni Sadhana Prasega Alasya Gauravam Swaitya Shaitya Sladhangatvam Swasakasadiniddhata. But interestingly, there is Alasya, not Daurbalya. We find Alasyam and Daurbalya. That is why I explained it. In Vada Vruddhi, we find Deenata. That Deenata is sort of weakness. But Alasyam is not a sort of weakness, but that is lack of the drive, lack of enthusiasm, sort of inertia. So along with adinidrada, you find the sort of inertia in kabhavritti, not the daurbalya. Whereas going through a vyadhi and becoming vyadhi mukta, there is severe depletion of ojas. All the vikaras, all the vyadhis are better known as ojoshana. Ojoshana rakshasas. They eat ojas. And by the time you reach the stage of vyadhi moksha, your ojas will be depleted significantly. You are getting out of the vyadhi at the cost of your ojas. Longer the vyadhi period, heavier will be the loss of ojas. And that ojas is nothing but prakrita shleshma swarupa. Prakrita shleshma swarupa. So when there is ojo ashanata, depletion of ojas, there is a depletion of prakrita shleshma avastha. So practically it is shleshma kshina avastha. Then this oja kshina avastha creates some sort of a daurbalya. That creates a stage of daurbalya. And the other point is adinidrata, but that is not a condition which you can expect for sure. Both can happen. If the ojakshaya has caused significant vada vruddhi because of the excessive rukshata, you cannot expect adinidrada invariably. There will be nidra nasham. After many, in the vyadhi moksha avastha, in many conditions, there is nidra nasham as well. But if it is a relatively good vyadhi moksha without much of a loss of ojas, or the ojakshaya, ojonasha is comparatively less, what happens is the vada vruddhi, even though less, which is happened out of this ojakshaya, will be compensated by viparita gunecha. Pradvesho vritti hetushu viparita gunecha cha. That way the body will resort to a condition of adinidrata to nourish the shleshma. So in that case, you can expect adinidrada, but that need not happen in all cases of vyadhi moksha avastha. There are many vyadhi moksha avasthas where daurbalya is accompanied by nidranasha as well. I hope the idea is clear to Dr. Ujjwala. And then we have to continue with asti vriddhi, which we will do in our next session, because I think the time is over. So, did you get the point clear, Dr. Ujjwala? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Sir, just I wanted to means when come patient comes to us, we have to go through the hetu only, na first. Then only we will get to know that we have to assimilate the dosha interpretation.
Yes.
When we see the hetu, because
Ah.
in Samhita it is written, but when the patient comes to us, like Guru, Snigdha Hara, like Kapha Prakop or Avranjanya, Amata, we have to consider, then we
Yes.
have to consider the dosha avastha.
Yes. 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 When you take the
Okay.
picture as a whole with all the ingredients, then it is very easy to understand that whether this is a kapha vruddhavastha or kapha kshayavastha, and why does the body respond in a peculiar manner. Okay.
Okay, okay, sir. Got it.
Fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. So we shall call it a day for the time being, and we will continue in our next session. Okay. Shubharatri to all of you.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. We will end for today and meet in our next session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Shubharatri.